Madam Mayor, Commissioners, good morning. Delightful to be with you. I mentioned last year that I plan to come and speak to you every year about this time and tell you a little bit about what's happening with the property tax roll and also the work that my office is doing. I hope that gives you both a better understanding of the role of our office, of the property appraiser, but also about property valuation and Florida tax policies. We're entering a very exciting period in our county's history. Record development and growth is slated to occur. However, simultaneously, we are tethered to the whims of a legislature that continues to erode our process somewhat. I'd like to draw an analogy to my career, which began 30 years ago when the office simply determined market value. We applied one homestead and we arrived at a taxable value. You multiplied it by your millage and we were done. It's certainly a very different day with that simplicity long gone, as we now administer 2 and possibly 3 homesteads, 2 distinct property tax caps, each with layers of complexity, and you, along with all the taxing authorities, must manage millage caps and stopgaps that limit your ability to levy. So taxpayers seem to be understandably confused. Those, especially I think those who invest in this state for the first time upon retirement, I'm sure they sometimes wonder what they bought into: sun, fun, and very complex property taxes. So I'd like to get started today just with a little bit about the 2018 tax roll, hopefully. Oh, there we go. There we go, perfect. So just some high-level figures. We are now at almost $264 billion in market value. That is the highest it has been by far. Again, breaking another record this year. Just to give you a point of reference, during the boom in the mid-2000s, the highest we ever got was $235 billion. So we're well past that point. Taxable value is there. The percent increase, 6.15, was what we delivered to you for the estimates. It will be higher than that for the preliminaries. I know County Administrator Baker will be pleased with the little increase we'll give you from the work we've been doing in the last month. The new construction figure, again, a very healthy $2.3 billion. Almost, it was down slightly from last year where it was $2.7 billion, but higher than 2016 at 2.1. Just for comparison's sake, Broward County, which has over 800,000 parcels, its taxable value, so the second line there, is $189 billion, so only $2 billion higher than us. They had a new construction of $2.8 billion this year. Miami-Dade, always the big dog in the room, $272 billion in taxable value, so their taxable value actually surpasses our market. And this amazing number of new construction at $5.6 billion just this year. It's incredible what's happening in Miami-Dade. This is the only graph I'm going to show you today. This just is really showing you the red line is the market value, the yellow line, the taxable value, and the distinction, again, highlighted by the impact of the caps, that the yellow line does not go up as steadily as the red line. It's a healthy trend. I think this line shows a very healthy trend. And the cap is helping the taxable value, actually, because it's at 2.1% this year. We've had years where it's less than 1%, so this is a nice increase that allows the taxable value to continue to increase. Thank you. I talked a little bit about market trends that we are seeing. First of all, again, the continued surge in new construction, and this won't stop anytime soon. A lot of that is an apartment complex, and I'm going to speak to specifically, but also the hotels that are going in and the downtown areas that continue to grow. The sales volume, there is slightly lower increases in prices, but the sales volume continues to remain steady at about 70,000 transactions a year. So that number is hovering around that 70,000 mark, has been for the last 3 or 4 years. And we may even see that number go down a little bit with the interest rates starting to rise, but I think it's still a very healthy number. The large-scale residential developments that we often think about, Westlake, Arden, Alton, and others, are really not this year's numbers. If you think about it just from the actual building, is really beginning now, and we will start to see them come online and over the next 3 years and beyond. But they aren't reflected so much in 2018's numbers. The apartment buildings are the most interesting thing we're watching. We added 16 new buildings to the roll this year alone, and there are probably another 20 coming on for 2019, adding an average value of $50 million per project. So they're a big value. Over $800 million of that $2.3 billion new construction is in apartment complexes. I think one of the concerns we have, and it's not a concern locally to us, it's all across the nation, is that a lot of those apartment complexes are high-end, disproportionately so. They're in expensive submarkets, many of them in downtown cores, and there was a recent article in Bloomberg about it, talking about that investors may be missing an opportunity in the mid-range. And I wonder whether this apartment building, a glut in the high end, I don't know whether we can call it a glut yet, but may prove to be a problem, just as the condos did. And the number who will receive the benefit, 224. So there's 115,000 homesteaders in Palm Beach County who will see the ballot initiative and will not receive any benefit from it. Just so you know, if it does pass, there is no process that the taxpayers have to go to. It's simply that we will apply a third homestead if it passes to those that qualify. I wanted to talk to you a little more about this 10 cap initiative. So in 2008, voters approved a 10% cap on all property that is not homesteaded. And the exception to this rule was the school board. They did not have to take the burden of the 10 cap. They owned those. So the school board continues to assess at full market value. However, everyone else, you included in all the municipalities and all the special districts, are impacted by a 10 cap. So this is for non-homesteaded property, and remember that would include commercial, residential, snowbird property, rental property, vacant land, industrial, et cetera, anything that's not homesteaded. It's a higher threshold at 10%, so it doesn't impact as many people every year. However, when it was written in 2008, we approved it for 10 years only. So it has to be renewed so it can be placed in the law forever. That's the purpose of ballot initiative number 2, would be to place this 10 cap into the law permanently. However, of course, as one does, it must pass by a 60% margin. And in the most recent polling that I've seen, it actually hasn't polled to pass. However, I am aware that there's going to be a fair bit of public outreach about this amendment. I wanted to show you the impact of if it doesn't pass, because I think that's sort of interesting. So the number of current parcels receiving a cap benefit, 136,000. In those, the residential is a larger number, but a lower value impact, 3.5 billion. The non-residential commercial property, only 8,000, but 2.3 billion. Again, you have to think about that commercial property can rise easily 10% a year, especially valuable commercial property. So if number 2 did not pass, it would return $5.8 billion to the tax roll next year, 2019. We are instructed, if this fails, to return everyone to market basically to strip out the 10 cap from our rolls. And the value returned to you would be $28 million. I find it ironic that it's identical to the amount that would go away in number one, the third homestead. So I did want to bring this to your attention just so you know that it's out there. And we will wait to see how it goes. I hope I will not be here next year asking if it fails, meaning we have to strip it out, for additional staff to cover the Value Adjustment Board hearings that will occur with everybody's value returning to market. However, we will all worry about that on November 9th, right?
Ms. Jacks, before you move on, Commissioner Balashay has a question for you.
Yes, of course.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So, let me understand what might possibly happen. If this is removed, there are properties that haven't had their full market value adjustment since 2008. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you could see a doubling or a tripling of that?
No, not necessarily. Remember, they go up 10% a year, up to 10% a year. So it's anything above and beyond 10%.
Okay.
So if your value, each year, we are instructed to recapture another 10%. So in other words, many people are continuing to go up. Their differential isn't so great. It's not a complete cap. It's just a 10% cap. So they would have been going up 10% every year since 2008.
Thank you.
So moving on to my office, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what is happening in the office. I wanted to make sure I introduced Brenda Hoffman, who's right here, who is my finance director. I just wanted to make sure you knew her face. She will be at the budget meetings this year on my behalf if I'm not able to be here myself. We submitted our budget to the Department of Revenue and to you on June 1st with a 1.1% increase and an overall reduction in our staff from 253 down to 245. That is a further reduction from 260 when I took office. And as I mentioned last year, we are doing that, by the way, through attrition, mainly through retirements. I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing. Simply when people retire, we are reworking the work so that we can do it more efficiently. We continue to be committed to technology, education, and research, which has really allowed me to reduce that staff. And we continue to work on cutting-edge technological change and our commitment to exceptional customer service. This year, we rolled out the 5th version of PAPA, which our website assisted by the county's ISS department, and we are very proud, all of us, of the exceptional tool that's used by so many in our county. But we're not stopping there. We rewrote our mission and our vision to reflect some of our forward-thinking approaches in the office. I thought I'd run through quickly a few of those things. Thank you. I guess I'm not controlling the, thank you. Thank you. Desktop review is one of the first things we're working on right now. In fact, they're in training today on it. This is using year-over-year imagery to detect changes in properties. So if you think about it, you can actually get artificial intelligence or the computer to look at an image over an image and find anyone that has an outlier. So where there's been a change in the image year over year, this is really the cutting edge of what we're doing in the assessment community, and a good way to help find those changes, especially in areas where we can't get into. It is, of course, also saving us travel time and money, not having to send people out to visit so many properties. We are working on 3D imagery of the downtown high-rises, an exciting new process that allows us to look at views out of our high-rise condos. If you think about it, the view from the 3rd floor is quite different from the view from the 10th floor, and again, quite different from the 15th, where the 3rd floor might see the street, the 10th floor might see the intracoastal, and the 50th floor might see the ocean. It really impacts value in a tower. And so having imagery and the ability to, again, use the computer to check for inefficiencies in the valuation. So making sure we've got our values correct based on those views is important. We actually did that, we did that project in partnership with the city of West Palm Beach We're actually going to go and talk to Boca Raton and see if they'd like to do it next. But it's exciting to think that it will help us. It would also help the cities with the work that they're doing on a completely different level. Parcel Fabric, for those, you are very big users of maps, as are we. Parcel Fabric is just the more advanced way to track parcels. We share a great deal of mapping data with you and with other county agencies, and we're actually looking at rewriting our agreement with you this year. The original agreement was written 25 years ago, and of course technology has changed quite a bit, so we'll be submitting that to you shortly. County Administrator Baker and I have talked about sharing the cost of aerial photography on an annual basis as opposed to every other year. This is quite common now in most of the major counties in Florida, Hillsborough, Broward, and so forth and so on are all flying their imagery annually. It of course helps on a lot of different levels, including that's the image used in PAPA. And we really are looking forward to some other data sharing opportunities we have with your agencies and with other city agencies. The VAB process is speeding up. We have gained a month in the VAB process over the last 2 years, a month each year. We're just doing that through online evidence exchange and scheduling more frequently the hearings, so we're hoping to continue that with the help of the clerk staff who've been really good to work with. And finally, the permit portal is simply a method that we can receive permit information both from you and the other and the cities regarding property improvements and so forth on a quicker basis. At the moment, some of that information still comes to us by fax, believe it or not. And we're just looking for a way to give the cities an opportunity to pass that information to us electronically in a more seamless way. And with that, I'll just finish by saying thank you for your support of our infrastructure, our buildings, and whether through ISS or the facilities department and our continued good relationships with many of your departments on economic exemptions, workforce housing, and much, much more. My #1 priority each day is to produce a fair and equitable tax roll, and you can be confident that our office is ready to meet those challenges. So thank you very much for having me, and I'd be happy to answer some questions.